Hey peeps, I'm Michelle.
Hey everyone, I'm Natalie.
Hey, what up? It's Faith.
Hey, Sydney.
Hey, it's Kat.
Hey, it's Bria.
Hey, it's Lori.
Hi everyone, it's Karina.
And this is the Red Lips and Mic Drops podcast.
Red lips and mic drops, thick hips and lip gloss. I'm talking issues and our thoughts. The world's unfair, so let's talk.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Red Lips and Mic Drops podcast. This is our first episode, and it's so appropriate because it's New Year's Day. It's 2021 officially, and I'm super pumped to be around all these awesome powerhouse women. This podcast is going to be about anything that you want it to be about, pretty much. We're going to be talking about hot topics, and I'm going to go around the group first and introduce everyone. By the way, my name's Kat. I'm the founder and owner of Katsy Lou Beauty, and I also am a one-on-one business coach. So that's enough about me. I want to get into the girls here. So Bria, let's start off with you since you're over to my left. Can you introduce yourself for us, my love?
Thank you for having me. My name is Bria. I'm a financial freedom strategist and a trauma-informed coach. So basically, I help people to strategize their finances and I mainly work with coaches. And we look at their finances after the fact of trading their time for money and figure out a strategy so that they become financially independent, as well as we work through the traumas that are underlining, that are preventing them from moving forward in their finances. So it's a little bit different than just going to a financial advisor. It's like a financial advisor meets like a psychologist that was never fully went to school. It just naturally occurs. I don't know how else to explain that.
No, I love it. Thank you, my love. Faith, we have Faith here today. By the way, not everybody's here, but we have most of us are here. So Faith, take it away. Let us know what you do.
Hey, I am Faith, and I build sales funnels for 6- and 7-figure entrepreneurs that are ready to break through their glass ceiling currently and strive and reach that next level with their funnels.
That's awesome.
That's
I mean, Faith was in my program the other day and was probably like, this is so... Because I'm not a funnel strategist. So I talk about it, we go through it, but I was like, oh my God, Faith is here and knows all of this. So that's awesome.
No. So the biggest thing is when people are building their funnels it's actually pretty impressive that you build your own funnels. And I love it because to me, that's just a data point. So when you can move from one data point to the next data point in your funnel, that's when you actually see the changes happening.
Awesome.
Thank
you, Faith.
Yeah.
Lori. How are you, Lori?
I'm
yourself
great.
For us.
My name is Lori. I am an online business manager, and I specialize in helping coaches and course creators launch their programs in a way that's aligned with them. Not a lot of people want to do the big live launches and the big webinars and all of that. So I work with people in what feels good for them.
That's awesome. I'm all about that too, Lori. I'm glad you do that because it's like not a one size fits all thing at all.
It's not, no, not at all.
Yeah. Awesome, Lori. Thanks, love. Natalie, how are you?
Hi, guys. I'm Natalie. I am a makeup artist. I live in Boston, but I travel around the world doing makeup. And I specialize in helping women learn how to become confident by teaching them how to enhance their natural beauty through the art of makeup and how promoting how you feel from the inside to the outside all kind of goes with each other. So
I'm about that life. I feel like also I'm Andy Cohen right now on The Real Housewives. Like, Natalie, how are you today? Michelle, how's it going, Michelle? Thanks, Natalie. Yeah. We'd love to have you here. Michelle, how are you, love?
I am great. So I'm Michelle. I'm a psychologist, but I'm also a mindset coach that helps women uncover the trauma that they've experienced in life and how it's like peeping its ugly head in your business and help them recover from that trauma and boom their business.
That's so, and we were talking, Michelle was saying earlier, was about women and owning yourself as a woman and being able to not doing it, I guess, unapologetically, right? Because I think in the past, obviously we have through generations felt like we've had to apologize for being strong. And I saw somebody's post today and it was a New Year's post, very fitting. And they were saying, like, I'm not going to apologize anymore for being a strong woman. Like, this is my time. I've always had this, like, people have always said I'm too much, right? Like, you're too emotional, or you're too this, or you're too that. And I don't know, like, what are your thoughts on that? Because I've gotten that a lot in my life. Like, you're too, especially the too emotional.
I find that I was experiencing that for a long time, and now I don't recognize when people are doing that to me because I've moved past it, I guess. So it's like, oh, okay, whatever. But I find I have a 13-year-old daughter, and I find, when she is emotional about something, I have to stop myself from saying to her, you don't need to cry about it. Right. And that's what I find is happening now to me is as I'm parenting her, all of those things that I learned so early on, I have to take that step back and go, oh my God, don't say this to her, because in 20 years, she's going to be dealing with the same things I was dealing with years ago. Right. Like, it just, that to me is where I'm really, I'm not going to say struggling with it, but I recognize it happening more so than with me, because I've gotten the yes, you're too emotional piece, but then it doesn't bother me anymore like it used to.
Because they dealt with that growing up. So that's what I mean by like the generational thing, but I don't
We're
know
allowed
how
to show emotions. Emotions are supposed to be kept hidden. Yeah. You're supposed to go through everything so stoically. You can't, like, I mean, you were called tempestuous or whatever it was, the term of the day, and they didn't want to deal with it because they didn't know how to deal with it. Wasn't it that they couldn't, they just didn't want to. It was an inconvenience. And so I think that a lot of people, when they have these emotional outbursts, like, it's just, everyone has emotions. Everyone gets pissed. Everyone is happy. Everyone is angry. Like, we have to have some way to get these emotions out. Otherwise they bubble up and they cause like health issues and all these other things that we take on. And then it's just, it's disgusting. It needs to stop.
Yeah,
It's just generational limiting beliefs that are passed down from each generation. I mean, I'm sitting in a house right now with 3 generations of women. One is 90, almost 100 years old, and they just weren't given the tools. Mental health was shamed, right?
Absolutely.
Michelle knows this. It was shamed. That's the generation that, you have to be, you have to be stoic. Mental health is a shameful thing. And so they never had the tools to learn. So if they couldn't do it on their own, and then we took it on in our generation, it's up to us to kind of stop that cycle of how it continues, through generations.
For so long, my mom would say, oh, that's they're a bunch of quacks. Keith's mother says, oh, they're a bunch, not now, but for a long time that was said. And like, I was having this conversation with Natalie, but the only time my relationship with my mother healed, and you said this, you called this out, is when I started going to therapy. Then she started healing herself. It was so fascinating. It was something I've never seen before in my entire life. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, well, you're healing karmic generational, bonds that happen. And so when you start to change, they don't even realize they're changing too, and I see that here in a house with Bobsha lives with my mother, and then I'm here now, and you can see, like, because I did so much work, you can see the difference. And again, nothing's ever going to be like, perfect, but you can see the difference in how interactions happen now. And so, it stinks to be the person to always have to do the work, but they just didn't. I mean, so many generations just didn't know. Like Michelle will tell you, she's a psychologist. Like, so many people, she probably gets people that come in there to talk to her that are like, oh, I don't even know why I'm in therapy, because they still feel bad. I mean, my boyfriend's ex-military. You think like, look at that. We send these guys off to war, and then we bring them back, and we don't give them any help, and we make them feel bad about it.
Absolutely. Because I was in the service too, and I've deployed overseas.
Yep. And
same thing. They send us back and with no resources or anything.
Right.
And that you feel bad to even reach out to the VA for anything.
Right. And you're
would talk to you like
dealing with You're dealing with PTSD, you're dealing with all kinds of
Absolutely.
things that happened. You saw things, you did things, and there's no tool to
Absolutely.
mentally, because you're supposed to be strong and stoic and all that. So.
Right.
I just want to
But
bring up
even in
another
mental
point.
health, that the way that for women especially, mental health has always been a stigmatized thing, because we go back to like Freud, and he's great in his own sense, but not towards women, because we were coined that we were hysterical. That's where the emotions come from, because we have a uterus, and that we can't run the world because we can't control our damn uterus. And
God,
so
that
the
pisses me
whole
off
thing,
so much.
that's how
I can't.
women kind of have over time, that we just believe we need to be stronger so that we can compete or be on the same wavelength as men. And then until probably like the 60s or 70s, men could actually drop their wives off at a mental institution because she wasn't listening to him, and she couldn't actually like check herself out. Her husband would have to check her out. So women, we've always kind of dealt with mental health, and we just kind of keep it under wraps and be strong, because who the hell wants to go to the mental hospital because their husband being a dick?
That's awful. That's awful.
is.
I
That
like
happens
black.
to Mad Men.
That happened to
did?
me.
That did?
Yeah, this actually happened to me. My ex-husband, I don't want to talk any crap on him, but he put me in a situation where I had to stay home with the kids. I had to dress a certain way. We were from a really nice area of town, Newtown, Pennsylvania. It was just super nice. And like, you kind of just had to look a certain way and everything. And so he wanted to come home to a clean house, like everything perfect. And if it wasn't, then there would be repercussions. And so it got to a point where it got so violent that at one point he got me to literally swallow every pill in the house and then called an ambulance. And I was in a mental institution, and I think it was like the third day, they were like, I finally started talking, and they were like, this is the worst abuse we've heard. But at the end of the day, they had to give me to him because he had isolated me so much.
Yeah.
That's the only option I had.
That's what, Michelle, classic narcissistic abuse, like
Exactly.
gaslighting her. Yeah.
Awful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Making you feel like you have the problem. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's awful.
Typically, though, in abusive relationships, once you get out of that relationship, you understand everything that's happened in that relationship. And instead of moving the needle more towards the middle, you go to the opposite end. And now you're not going to accept anything, which he humanly possibly can't be that person either. So you got to kind of move the needle to the middle. Like, what are the big deal breakers versus, you know, him? Gaslighting is normal for a lot of people. We learn it in our lives. We are all manipulators. We've learned to get our needs met through manipulation, but it doesn't have to be like manipulation out of malice or that you want to hurt someone. But we've all learned how to, you know, lie to get an extra cookie or things like that, where we're all manipulators. That's just the way the world works. And so,
but how do I handle those situations? Because I get triggered when that happens. I go right back into, like, I still get, and I'm being honest, I still get triggered. Like, I go right back into the past, and I think, like, I feel like that person is speaking to me again. So how do you maintain, I wasn't flipping out or anything like that. It was more of just like a very stern approach to saying, hey, listen, I'm not okay with this. I know what this is. And his response is always, oh, I hate that word, gaslighting. Well, and it's like, it is a word that a lot of people are like, what is that? That's so like fake and not real. And I'm like, no, but it actually really is real. So how do we handle our reactions to that if we know and are aware of it now?
Well, don't you have to heal that? And then when you realize it's the trigger, instead of reacting, you can respond.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so like, and I've had to do so much work on this myself. So like, you know, you're reacting to it. Like, you know, it's a trigger for you, right? We all have triggers. I have triggers every other day of my life. I had a trigger this morning, right? And Nick's like, what is wrong with you? But then it's like, you know, that it's triggering you. So instead of like, and of course, we all have reacted. I'm guilty of it. Stupidly reacted to things. But if we recognize it, then the next time it happens, we can say, okay, that's a trigger, take a step back, and then learn to
Yes.
respond to it, as opposed to like, you're gaslighting me, you're a narcissist,
That's
we're
so
done,
hard for
see you
me.
later.
It's so hard for me because I know, and I talk about responding and not reacting because my therapist has talked to me so much about it. And I always have said, like, that is something that's very hard for me to do. Like,
But you have to learn how to respond as opposed to react.
yes. So
Therapists
how does
can
that
tell
happen?
you to do that, but it's like, how the hell do I do that? Like, what does that
Right.
even look like?
Right.
And it's really formulary that you take your thoughts to court. I tell all my clients this because you really can relate to court, especially if you've ever been in court for people. I don't know who has been. That's
I have
another
been,
topic.
not as a reporter. So no, you know.
But what does the judge want to hear? The judge wants to hear facts.
Yeah.
If you go in and with your emotion and say, I think this is happening, the judge doesn't care about what you think. The judge wants to know, where are the facts? And so when you have this reaction, you can really pull out the emotions by knowing what are the facts, and that you then can change your reaction to a response. Because
so
you
good.
can't go into court with how you feel.
Right.
You have to go into
Yeah.
court with what you know. And so that's how you could kind of change those traumatic responses that you have. And it takes time for you to do those things, because the first 100 times you're probably going to fail. You might have one good one and then you're going to fail again, because that's just what we do as humans, is we're super good at failure.
Yesterday, I had an incident where I had to communicate something that was super uncomfortable to my partner.
Oh.
And I remember when I finally communicated it, it had been hours after the incident. So I was making up all these stories in my head, what it could have been. And then when I finally asked him, I said, hey, why is it that you did this thing? And he answered really nicely. But the thing is that his response was even better after that. He said, Bria, he's like, listen, I'm a man. He goes, I am solution oriented. So if you want something done differently, you just tell me how you want it done. You don't have to make up all these stories in your brain and like literally torture yourself forever. Just trust that I'm a good human and we'll just work on it together. So I realized too, for us women to really, coexist with our man, we have to understand how men receive information as well. So
That is the way that you ask that too. Like my therapist has always said that to me, ask, because Keith has been with me, like in the office, we've sat together for a few sessions and not enough, but she has said, instead of saying, oh, I hate that you're acting this way, or being very like accusatory or being very aggressive, just ask, why do you feel that way? Or why, what made you think that, or what made you say that, instead of like making it like the stories. That's exactly what she was telling, because Keith and I both had this problem for a long time where he would go, I know you're upset. I already know you're upset just based on the way I already know. And my therapist is like, instead of saying, I know you're upset, say, are you upset right now? Ask the question. And it makes people, that's why you had such a healthy reaction, Bria, because you asked the question so gently. And that's very, very wise.
That's the hardest part, is the gently asking.
I know.
Are you mad at me?
You're mad at me. I know it, bitch.
Tell me now.
So your brain starts making any assumption, whether it's about somebody else or about yourself or a justification. It's your subconscious mind trying to keep you looped in your trauma. So if you can identify and practice at that level of awareness that this is what's occurring, it's a bit easier to remove the emotion and then work and from the logical perspective.
Absolutely.
I had to work on that a lot, the asking of questions, because both of us did. Like, she was like, I'm sitting here with two people who are making up stories, like that aren't really, she's like, you're living in different realities. Like this isn't what reality is. Well, at least we don't know that. So instead of accusing, explore instead and ask questions. And it's such a hard art to, I don't even know what to call it, Michelle, but I'm looking at Michelle because Michelle is like,
Michelle's diagnosing.
Michelle probably thinks I'm crazy. Michelle is definitely diagnosing.
That's why I'm not invited to family events. Everyone thinks I either read their mind or I'm diagnosing them. And I'm like, if you're not paying me, I ain't doing shit.
Yeah.
I'm off the clock, honey.
Michelle,
I'm
are
off
you
the clock.
Yes.
Are you? Is everybody here? Does everybody here have spiritual gifts? I'm just curious.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yes.
I'm
you
with Kat.
do.
Probably not.
Yes, you do. Yes, you
Yeah.
do.
It's
Really?
okay. I heard you say read my mind, and I'm like, well, I'm a natural born psychic. Hi.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yes, Bria. Oh my God.
Yours probably is too, huh?
I'm very in tune with the other side. So
Yes.
Yeah.
yeah, like very,
Amazing.
very, yeah, yeah, yeah.
When did that happen for you guys? Bria, when did you start? Like, because I know you were talking to me about this and Natalie was too. When did that start for you? That's amazing.
I have a crazy story. It started from being like birth. I had what's called face blindness. What they say is called face blindness, but I literally could only see energies the first like probably 7 years of my life.
Wow.
So I couldn't see people's faces at all. I could just see like these energy, fizzy things with colors in it, and that was it. If you try to ask me, and it still happens to this day, so if you try to ask me about somebody's like how they look when they walk away, I couldn't tell you if I tried. But my family thought I was mentally insane even after I was able to speak to my dead grandparents about things that I would never know about and predict things like I predicted my mother would get pregnant and then she got an abortion and lied about it. So then she told me my gifts weren't real. So I put them on like freeze. And then I went through like all of the paralysis and all that you go through, because when you are that psychic and that gifted and you start to believe that your gifts aren't real, you think that you're crazy.
Yeah.
So then crazy spiritual stuff like, demonic, weird stuff starts happening around you. So I lived in fear for like half my life. But yeah, that's when it started for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
And
I could go get my mom downstairs. She'll tell you when I was little, I used to freak them out. So that's when
Oh
it
my
started.
God.
Yeah. Yeah.
How old were
to.
you? Do you remember?
My earliest childhood memory was my godfather. I was 2.5, almost 3. He was dying in the hospital of pancreatic cancer. And my mom used to take me every day to see him. And he would pull me up on his lap. We watched Sesame Street together. And I like told her that when I was older. And she was like, how do you know that? You were so young. Like, that's my first childhood memory. But then I like would play with him in he gave me this like dollhouse, and I would play with that dollhouse and I would be playing with him and tell my mom I was playing with him. So I don't actually remember like the playing, but then I just kind of my whole life I've always been, people think I'm weird. Like I have people that shame me for it or tell me like how when people do that to you, they're afraid of that stuff themselves. Bria will tell you, and Michelle will tell you, being a psychologist, anytime somebody wants you to play small, it's because of their own fear within themselves. And so
Absolutely.
For the longest time, I thought being an empath and feeling other people's feelings and then seeing, things that I was wrong and I wasn't lovable or I shouldn't be who I am, that, I still have people in my life that don't support me, right? And I don't mean they're in my life in the way they used to be, but I know like where to put them now in my life, if that makes sense. And so, I have a girlfriend and her and I talk every day about, she's like, do you see anything like around me?
That's cool.
I'm like, I wouldn't say I'm psychic like Bria because I never tapped into that, but there are moments where Kat, I've told you things and then it happens. You're like, how'd you know? I'm like, I'm psychic.
Yes, she has. And I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly.
It's not for Bria probably sees it. I just kind of feel it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I just feel it. And then usually I'm pretty right. Like a friend of mine just had a baby. I told her she was having a girl and she was hell-bent. She was having a boy and she had a girl. And she's like, how did you know? I'm like, I don't know. I just kind of felt it. Like I don't know how to explain that. It's not like it's not like Bria's psychic in the way you vision, right? You see the visions. That's not me, but I'm very connected with spirits and, I see things all the time that I don't realize other people don't see. And so, but I never wanted to be a medium. Like I never wanted to I think my mom suppressed that for me too, which I'm not upset about. Like that was not the route I wanted to go. And there's nothing against them. It wasn't my thing. But so I don't talk to spirits or anything like of that nature. But I don't know. I just feel things all the time. So
I feel like that's so overwhelming too. Like, do you guys ever feel like, oh my, I mean, I know you probably do, so drained. Like my medium, she literally has to leave after every session to go on a walk for like an hour because it's just so like draining. It's exhausting.
You were talking about the seeing part. I did a few criminal investigations, so missing people reports and things like that. I have various gifts. So I have clairaudience, clairsentient. I can see all of that, feel, taste, smell. I literally go into a full-on trance. And whenever I went through those, I had to be trained by another medium before I even went in, because what I would do is I would talk to the spirit that was murdered. And because I was seeing it from their perspective, it wasn't, I wasn't observing the whole thing. So I was missing, key elements. So I would literally have to do what's like, basically, I forget what it's called, but you go into a visual of it. So you're on the outside of it looking in, and you have to see everything that goes on. And you're trying to key into where's the evidence? What did they leave? What did they look like? What did the car look like literally everything. So when I got out of that, it took me about a week after the last case. I didn't go on Facebook, nothing. I was like, I am taking a bath every 5 seconds. I am getting to my therapist. It was game over for me for a week. Yeah.
Wow.
Faith, you have the best name ever. Faith, just looking at your name on Facebook makes me feel better. I'm like, I know. I feel good when I see it. I'm like, that's perfect.
Faith just like cleanse us every time.
My maiden name was Faith Wright, W-R-I-G-H-T.
Oh my God.
Then my first husband his last name was Ruby, so I was Faith Ruby, and now my current husband is Faith Sage.
I love it.
Did you guys notice too that myself, Lori, and Faith are just enamored by the spiritual?
Yeah.
I love the spirit world.
I think,
I just got a human divine reading.
Yes, and I think it's so important to incorporate into like the business stuff too. I 100%, because in Michelle, obviously, you and Bria, and I mean even Natalie too. I'm sure you get this too with clients, but like, because there's so many emotions with like the bridal parties and all of that.
I get all the emotion.
Yes. But I see people talk about it so much. And there's this thing with like the business world too, where I think we don't like talk about it enough. We don't, because 90% of the time with my clients or students, even they'll be like, you have all of these blocks come up. And it's like, I just had one the other day. How do I know that I'm good enough? Like my student actually came out and asked me that privately. And I was like, oh my God, this happens. It's so much more often than all the other stuff. It really is. Sure. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm over here like, girl, you are a badass. And that's probably not the right approach, but they are. And it happens all the time, every day.
What though? What is happening? And I would love to speak on this. It's kind of a different topic, but shaming in the coaching industry, it's very, it's very minute. You almost can't see it. But the other day I posted something, and I don't know who this person is, so I'm kind of calling them out. I'm kind of not, because you can literally look at the post. But I said something like, what if I fail? What is your response? Like, so in quotes, what is your response? And this girl goes, I don't even think like that. And I'm like, and she's the coach. And I said, you don't think like that? Like, you don't have moments when you're leveling up, because there's always going to be a moment to level up in this reality, that every time I level up, I have a moment where I have just this ounce of fear. It's like, what if I fail? What if I can't do it? Right. And it's just such a human thing. And I think that people in the coaching industry are really dehumanizing by playing this perfectionist game, and they're low-key shaming people. That's why that keeps occurring.
That's so
absolutely.
That is, I always, because I talk to my clients all the time about, well, listen, this is not going to just happen now. Like, you're not just going to get through this part and then be like, oh, everything's great. Because in a few years or so, or whenever that happens for you, when you take the next step, hope maybe it's less than a few years or less than a year, you're going to feel that same emotion again. You're going to feel a little bit fearful of what's happening. And then you might stop yourself. So I want you to be prepared for that. That's a very realistic thing, Bria, that you just said.
Michelle could probably tell us from a psychological standpoint, the word fear became a negative.
Yeah.
right? Where that's not really, fear isn't really negative. It's just something making you aware of something else that you need to like bring to the surface for yourself. But everyone, we see, and I do it. I put quotations up on my Instagram to empower women and make you feel better. And the whole law of attraction, if you think it, it will happen. And how you think is the energy you'll attract and all that. But people forgot to say, like, but it is still okay if you do have a fear, because then once you know you have a fear, you can bring that to the surface. And then, like Bria's saying, your ascension goes further, your leveling up goes further when you can say, okay, I'm terrified of this. And I know it's my subconscious talking or my limiting beliefs, and now I have to get down to it. But because everyone made fear such a negative word, people are afraid to be like, oh, I'm afraid to do something, right? And then the coaching world, which I'm not in, but your coaching world is like, if you're afraid, it's you're not thinking the right way, and then you're attracting the wrong energy, and then blah 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 blah, and then your ascension's not happening, you're not leveling up, and then you're stuck.
It's because they're actually stuck and can't walk you through that.
Right.
Fear is a primal instinct. We all have it.
Right.
And it was passed down through generation after generation. And it's a part of our brain that keeps us basically safe. And for our ancestors to not get eaten in the woods. None of us are fucking getting eaten in the woods anymore. So we don't really need it. But we've also put that negative connotation on fear. But it can be a really helpful resource to be afraid of something. But we're taught that it should be a bad thing, and that you're right, in the coaching world, it's kind of like this perfectionism.
Yeah.
I trip over the sidewalk. How perfect am I gonna be?
Right. Well, it's not just the coaching world, because I'm in a different world, and we now have perfectionism of YouTube famous and Instagram famous face tuned makeup artists, where you literally don't have like any pores on your face, which is not reality. And you don't have, so it's this level of perfectionism that social media, I believe, kind of brought into the world. And then when somebody, look at what they do. I work with some of those people, like, look what they do to celebrities if the paparazzi finds one without makeup on one day. Like, they destroy
I love those pictures. I love seeing that. I'm like, yes, pops, take it. Take those pics. I love seeing that, because I'm like, oh, thank God.
Makes them
everyone is human, but we got out of that whole mindset in the world that people are human and they're allowed. Let's be honest. I'm the behind the scenes girl. I do not like being on camera. Ask Kat. This is the most terrifying thing for me to do. I'm sitting here playing with my hair. Michelle could diaggnose me with like, that's my anxiety coming through, right? Like
Natalie,
I'm very self-aware, but but I hate the camera and I'm doing it. So I would never pretend that like, I'm not afraid of that, but then it makes me say, okay, I'm afraid of this. Why am I afraid of this? Okay, those are my limiting beliefs. That's my low self-worth and self-esteem issues coming back into play that I've had from other things and trauma and all that. And then now I know, like, I can do it, and then I make myself do it. But if I sat here just like, oh yeah, this is great, I'm perfect, like I have no fear at all, I'd be lying. So I don't understand why people are lying about like that they have fear. It's a normal human emotion. So
well, I just want to say that I got a candle this Christmas, and it fits in perfectly with you getting on camera, even though you don't, because it's a candle that says "bitches get shit done." That's what that is.
I love it.
And I lit that just for this podcast.
Where can I buy that?
I know.
On Amazon. I don't know.
Perfect. I love it.
Yeah, it's great.
I have to say this. First of all, so proud of you, Miss Natalie. But I've had 10 years of being on camera. I was a news reporter. I worked on QVC. I still tug at my shirt. I still play with my hair. I'm like, who's watching me? It's always happens. On my live videos. Go back and watch some. Entertain yourself. I'm looking at my hair. It's ridiculous. And maybe that's part of, do you think, is this everyone? I don't want to limit this to women, but does this happen more often with women than it does men? Is that a silly question?
I think so, because men could be ugly and be on camera,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They could be fat and be on camera. They could be whatever and be on camera. And women, we can't. We have to have the perfect hair, the perfect makeup, the perfect outfit, or
That's
other
social
women are
stigma.
judging us.
Yeah.
Yep.
But men,
That's the worst.
they can have the little dad bod and no one's batting two
They're-
eyelashes at it.
They're freaking raised up to the roof because of that, you know.
Yeah.
But women, it's
Guys,
like,
I have to tell you how healthy TikTok is. Okay, I don't know if it is me. Michelle,
I love it.
These kids, this younger generation, some are, yes, we get it. Like your toxic teenage years, I get it. But like the things that I'm seeing from these kids on TikTok is freaking phenomenal. This girl, they're posting about, these girls are posting their weight gain from January 2020 to now. Like they're like, here's me in January 2020. Oh, look how much weight I gained. And their stomach's out. And they're like, this is me. I just have to, this is what it is. Like, this is just a fact. And these girls will comment, like, you went from being a queen to being a queen. And like, they're just so like supportive of that. Not that like, you know, not that being unhealthy is okay, but they're saying pretty much like, it's so transparent and it's so real. And I'm like, I have never seen this ever before on social media, like ever from a female.
And it won't happen on Facebook for sure.
No, never. It'll probably be taken down or like flagged.
Yeah.
This is too real.
Zuckerberg's flagging everyone promoting
Too real of content.
sucks.
Well,
Yeah.
I come from, hi, I'm in an industry where I literally make those people look perfect, right?
Yeah.
Like they have to look perfect. And I think, what people don't realize is like, even me getting on camera, it's like in my head, I'm like, oh, someone's going to see this that works with me. They're gonna be like, oh, her hair doesn't look that good, or her face is off, or it's going to be, I hate to say it, it's going to be someone still in my life that probably shouldn't be in my life, but maybe they're just in my life at arm's length, but they're going to see it and they're going to love the fact that like, I don't look perfect, because that makes them feel better about their shortcomings. Right. And right. We all know those people and we all have them. And they don't have to be in our life, but like where they are, they're still checking up on you or whatever.
People that want to see you fail.
Or they want to see you.
Yes.
I remember I had a friend that I went through a hormone imbalance a few years ago, and I didn't look like I always do because of it, because my hormones were out of whack. And I had a friend like telling people like the most horrific, a friend, right? Like she would say to people, oh, like Nally doesn't look that good anymore, and blah, 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 blah. Like that's what women, no man has ever said that to me. Isn't that funny? It's like no man, and I've been through abusive men that were narcissists, but no man has ever been like, oh, you don't look as good as you once did, or oh, you gained some weight, or oh, you look better now, or you know what I mean? I dated Nick 5 years ago, and we're back together now, and never once was he like, oh, 5 years ago you were thinner here, what, like it's not the men that do it, it's the women, and that's why we do it to ourselves.
Where is that coming from? That's coming from somewhere. Like, why are women so competitive? What is
I believe.
8 strangers on the internet coming together for intimate conversations about difficult topics with soft hearts and strong voices. This is Red Lips and Mic Drops.
Red lips and mic drops, thick hips and lip gloss. I'm talking issues and our thoughts. The world's unfair, so let's talk. Red lips and mic drops, thick hips and lip gloss. I'm talking issues and our thoughts. The world's unfair, so let's talk.